Welcome back, everybody, to Toronto Today here on the Parlay. I'm your host, Luca Rosano, alongside my co-host, Michael Singh, and we are back on this Friday, on this snowy Friday in the GTA area to bring you this podcast. As we're going to talk about the Leafs, we're going to talk about the Raptors. They're going to be back in action tonight for the first time in what seems like a month. They'll finally get to start their second half of the season. And then we'll talk some TFC. Yes, TFC, their season opener is tomorrow. Time flies as we're going to have a lot of Toronto sports to get to. And that's even without the Blue Jays, who are still in the midst of the MLB lockout. But let's first start at the top here, Mike. Wild Leafs. It was a game at home in which the Leafs won. They snapped that 3-game skid. They beat the Wild 3-1. Austin Matthews scored 2 times. He picked up his 35th and 36th goals, respectively, now putting him past Draisaitl for the league lead. Matthews has 77 goals in 100 games, which is an impressive mark. And this is what Sheldon Keefe was asked if Matthews should get Hart Trophy considerations this season. And he said, I quote, without a doubt. Let's start there with Austin Matthews. Right now, he's plus 700 to win this award. Does he have a shot considering how well he's been playing?
Yeah, I think he does have a shot. And obviously, the front runners right now are still Connor McDavid and Jonathan Huberdeau, based on the seasons that they're having. Obviously, Ovi is in consideration as well as Chris Kreider. But the way that Matthews is playing right now, he's played like he's the best player in hockey over this last stretch of games. I mean, his last 31 games, this guy has 29 goals scored. That's Wayne Gretzky territory, and I don't know if you mentioned this already, but 77 goals in his last 100 games.
Yeah, insane.
That's NHL record kind of territory, and that's something that people thought would never be able to be touched. And this guy's scoring at that kind of rate. As they say, goals are one of the most valuable things, if not the most valuable thing, right now. And Austin Matthews is doing it. He's doing it in bunches. And even when this Leafs team is not going like they weren't last night, Austin Matthews finds a way to get them going. And I just talk about the goal scoring because that's what stands out, but there's also so much more to his game. Austin Matthews is a guy who grew up playing 5-on-5 hockey on a 3-on-3 size NHL, or not even NHL rink, 3-on-3 size rink. And you can see that in his game because he's so good in tight. He's so good retrieving pucks. He's so good keeping pucks in tight spaces. And that makes him way better defensively. We want to talk about his faceoffs this season. He's one of the best faceoff guys in all of NHL right now. And he's really evolved his 200-foot game. I mean, he was good to begin with, but now he's turned into a legitimate two-way threat, and especially on the offensive end because we know how lethal he is in front of goal. So I think he absolutely does have a shot to win this award. If he keeps up this pace like he's been the last 2-3 months of the year, then he's going to be in contention because Connor McDavid has sort of come down to earth a little bit with the Edmonton Oilers not doing so well.
Yeah, we already talked about his Rocket Richard odds before this, or I would say, like 2 months into the season, and they're already really high, and clearly he's the favorite right now. So it is interesting to see how the narrative is starting to shift from that, which is an anomaly at this point, to Hart Trophy considerations. And I think he's absolutely going to be in play if he continues to stretch. And you talk about the slide that McDavid is on, that's definitely going to contribute in Matthews having a shot. He was huge last night. He was the reason why the Leafs won that game. I mean, Marazzic was special. We'll get to him in a minute, but Matthews kind of jump-started that team, jump-started that offense. He did end up having the go-ahead game-winning goal before Kerfoot added the empty net goal. So, yeah, he was dynamite last night, and that's what you need from a Leafs team that had their backs up against the wall. They were in desperate need of a win. They were at home. What do? You rely on your biggest guns, your best guns, and it so happened to be Austin Matthews last night. He was fun to watch, and this run that he's on with his goal scoring, it is just insane. It is Wayne Gretzky-like with the way that he's just been scoring at will. Let's now talk about Peter Marazzic. This was a nice spot for him. He had a very good outing, and this was much needed from a Leafs team that has had their fair share of goaltending issues the last couple of games. And he was able to get the win here. And with Jack Campbell struggling, it was nice to see the backup in Marazzic get his and actually look solid in that.
Yeah, I'm happy through Marazzic in the rundown today because I thought he was exactly that. He was solid, and when the Leafs goaltending, you can't really say that's been the case the past couple of months here. So I thought overall, yeah, Marazzic had a really steady game. I think Leafs defensively as a whole, they had a really strong game. I think Sheldon Keefe actually said that after the game. He commented on the Leafs defensive effort. I thought it was really solid. We were disciplined, we were committed to it. It was a very low event hockey game, not the most exciting game. Our guys stayed committed to it, and I thought that was pretty bang on because there was a stretch there maybe in the second period when things were kind of opened up a little bit, but for the most part this was a game that was really in tight, and I thought the Leafs did a good job of keeping it that way towards the end of the game. I know towards the end of the game as well, Mrazek did make a pretty remarkable save, but he wasn't really asked to do that too many times, and that's more so a compliment to the Leafs defense as it is to Peter Mrazek, but he did make the save as well, and a 3-1 victory will bode well for his confidence. So as has been a topic on this show quite often, I'm interested to see how the Leafs will use him here down the stretch with Jack Campbell kind of struggling, and maybe they need to give Jack Campbell some more time to kind of regroup and refine his game.
Yeah, let me ask you this. If Campbell continues to struggle mightily as we've seen, and Marazzic continues to step in solidly in these spots, is there any way this becomes a goaltending controversy, or Jack Campbell, no matter what, for better or for worse, is the Leafs' number one guy, the guy that they're going to be counting on in the playoffs, even if he does come up shorthanded and disappointing?
I'd say there definitely is a way. Um, Mrazek is a goalie who can get really hot, and he can get really hot to the point he's one of the best goalies in the NHL. There's a lot of time left in this season, and we look at Jack Campbell. It's not a small sample size anymore where we're saying he's struggled. We're now looking back all the way to December 1st, which is almost 3 months now, where Jack Campbell hasn't really been Jack Campbell. There's been
Yeah.
stints of it, but it hasn't been that steady, consistent presence that we're used to seeing from Jack Campbell. So there's a lot of hockey left to be played. It looks like the Leafs are going to be playing Mrazek some more than they were earlier in the year. And I think he absolutely does have a shot as long as Campbell continues to falter and Mrazek continues to play well. But it's something that's going to have to be reevaluated, I guess, in a couple months here because there's a lot of hockey left to be played, as I said.
Yeah, and I bring it up because I think it is interesting to monitor, and I think there is something there where this could turn into a goaltending controversy. Where if Mrazek continues to step in nicely and he shines in these moments during Campbell's downfall, if you want to call it that, there's definitely going to be decisions that have to be made in more important parts of the season and going into the postseason. So yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting to see how both these goalies respond in the wake of these situations that are presented to them. As the Leafs then have recalled forward Nick Robertson from the Marlies. This was actually reported this morning. So, what do you think of the move as the Leafs are getting Robertson back from the Marlies? Do you see him adding any immediate impact on this team?
Yeah, that's a good question. I saw that this morning and I loved it because this is a guy who's been so highly touted as a youngster to be able to step up and eventually make an impact on this hockey team. I don't think they're bringing him up to play on the fourth line. I think there's a chance that he gets a run alongside the Tavares line, as that line is still looking for a spark. I thought they were okay last night. They weren't anything special with Andre Kasha beside John Tavares and William Nylander. So maybe Nick Robertson gets a shot there. Uh, what Kyle Dubas has said about Robertson this year, he missed a lot of time due to injury. But what he said is that he loves his 200-foot game, right? He loves the fact that Robertson can now be reliable defensively. At least he showed that at the AHL level, but of course he also has that scoring punch to him. So I really don't know what to expect from Robertson. As I mentioned, he missed a lot of time. He's another year older, so he probably got a little bit stronger, a little bit bigger, a little bit faster even. So I want to see kind of how he slots in. I'm sure the Leafs do as well, well in time before the trade deadline, because maybe making that move isn't as imminent if Robertson can fill that void if they have that from within.
Yeah, no, I'm excited to see what he can do here, especially as Leafs enter a crucial point before the NHL trade deadline. You want to see what these call-ups can give you before entering that period. Okay, so the Leafs, they come off a nice win, and now they're going to be taking on the Red Wings on Saturday night. What do you see happening here? I mean, the Red Wings have been a 500 team, it seems, all season long. Is this another opportunity for the Leafs to get it right and come away with another victory?
Yeah, it's a winnable game, right? The last time they went to Detroit, I think Detroit actually upset them, if I
Yeah, I
recall
remember that show.
correctly. Yeah. So I think it's a time for the Leafs, as you mentioned, to get things right. They're gonna probably remember that game in Detroit and not take them as lightly, perhaps, as they did last time. And I expect the Leafs to continue rolling here because they got a little bit of momentum. Minnesota's obviously a way tougher team than Detroit, so if you can do it against Minnesota, you can probably do it against Detroit, as they probably gives them some confidence here heading into Saturday night's matchup. And I'm not as confident as I was last time because obviously they lost that game. That being said, it's still a superior team, the Leafs, that should take care of business in Detroit.
Who do you think we see here? Campbell gets the start after
I think
a little
so.
bit of
I
rest.
think so. I don't think you're ready to. I mean, this team's not in a position where it's desperate for wins. And I think it's more important for the long term success of this team that Campbell gets back on track as opposed to creating that goaltending controversy, as you kind of referred to earlier. So I think you give Campbell a long leash here, and hopefully he refines his footing, and maybe it starts Saturday night in Detroit.
We'll see what happens with that matchup. Keep an eye on the odds as they will be changing a lot up until puck drop. So that game is tomorrow night. So yeah, keep an eye on it if you want to place a bet. Leafs, they're my pick too. I think they will get it done against the Red Wings. Okay, let's now talk some Raptors basketball. It feels like it's been forever since we last talked about this team, but they're finally going to be in action. And they're going to be taking on a Hornets team that they are sliding and then some. This is a perfect opportunity for the Raptors to begin their second part of the season on the right note. And this is a very winnable game. We just talked about a very winnable game with the Leafs. This is a very winnable game for the Raptors. As the Raptors open up as 2.5 point favorites, I was actually surprised it wasn't a little bit higher. This game will be in Charlotte, but you look at the Raptors, they have been dominant over the last 10 games. They're 8-2. They're 9-2 both straight up and against the spread in their last 11. And the Hornets, this is more about just them struggling and really falling from grace. They have lost 3 games in a row going into the break. They're 1-9 in their last 10 games, and they're 0-7 straight up in their last 7 home games. And the Raptors, just to add another stat here, 6-1 against the spread in their last 7 road games. So are you surprised that the spread is actually this low for the Raptors? Or do you suspect there could be a little bit of a trap here?
It's definitely intriguing, right? The spread being this low. Am I surprised it's this low? I'm not because you're favored on the road, and we know in the NBA it's not very often where that does happen. I don't think the Raptors are necessarily. Yeah, sure, they're 8-2 in their last 10, 9-2 against the spread in their last 11, but they're not the Miami Heat still. At least Vegas doesn't perceive them to be a team like the Miami Heat or Brooklyn Nets when they're healthy, or Philadelphia 76ers. This is still the Toronto Raptors. And I that being said, I do love this bet for the Raptors because, as you mentioned, the Hornets, something we've talked about on this show for quite some time, is how much they've been struggling, and they've
Yeah.
dropped out of that playoff spot, of course, in the Eastern Conference. And the All Star break couldn't have come at a more perfect time for that team. As you mentioned, 0-7 in their last 7 home games at the Spectrum Center, and they're back there tonight. And I think it's really important for them to sort of right their ship there. But we know that this Raptors team, refresh, recharge, won't make it very easy on them. And then there's some positive news as well with just before actually the show went, or maybe even during the show, I saw Fred Van Vliet will actually play tonight. He was listed as questionable with right knee soreness, so he will play tonight, and that's a huge boost, obviously, for this Toronto Raptors team, who, by the way, has had success playing in Charlotte already this season recently, if I can recall correctly. So I like the Raptors in this spot a lot. I think it's a bet that I'd really like. I'm probably gonna throw some money down on that, and we'll see kind of how this plays out.
I was banking on Van Vliet to be ready for tonight. Could you imagine he didn't play tonight? I mean, the dude was having a good time during the All Star break. He played in the actual All Star game. He played in the 3 point contest. So yeah, I expected him to be ready to go and healthy for the last stretch of games, as it is going to be good to see this Raptors team healthy and ready to go, because that was one of their obstacles in the first part of the season before 2022 of this team not being together. This is going to start a big stretch for the Raptors. I'm talking huge stretch. So they're actually going to play 4 games in 5 nights. There's going to be very little time off. So this is going to be a grueling, bang them out last 25 games, I think it is, for the Raptors. They begin tonight against a Hornets team that they're looking to right their own ship. They're looking to get back into the mix. Then they're going to have the Hawks tomorrow night. We talk about how the Hawks could be the Raptors in a sense, of a team that started off slow and they're looking to make up ground back into the playoff mix. And then they got the Nets Monday and Tuesday. We're going to get more into these Nets games as we do the shows on Monday and Tuesday. But those are the games to me, the Hawks, Nets, and Nets, that is really going to set the tone for this last part of the season for the Raptors. If they can look good and survive this 4 game stretch and, I don't know, come away with a 3-1 record, that's really going to bode well for this Raps team. And a big question mark is going to be, who are they going to get in those Nets games? Is
Mm-hmm.
KD going to be back? Is Ben Simmons going to be back? There's rumors that they're reportedly close. They're about, I think, less than a week away. Kyrie Irving got some big news. He's allowed to play in home games, but that rule is not going to take effect for, I think, a couple more weeks. So, yeah, I'm excited to see how the Raptors will look during this stretch. So, my question to follow off of that is, when it's all said and done, where do you see this Raptors team finishing up in the East? Is it where they're at now? Is it 8th to 10th? Or do you see them getting into that top six?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, Brooklyn are behind them, and I can't stray away from my bet that I made a couple weeks ago, which was Brooklyn to win the Atlantic Division. So I have to assume Brooklyn will leap ahead of the Raptors, which would push the Raptors back at least into the eighth spot, I believe. The Celtics, I mean, they looked really good once again last night. I, it's going to be tough for the Raptors to jump into that top six, isn't it? It's really competitive there in the Eastern Conference, and Cleveland doesn't look like they're slowing down. They are obviously going to get some momentum after what was another solid showing at the NBA All Star game. Yeah, I see the Raptors maybe finishing seventh here, Luca.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. Bulls strong, Heat strong, Sixers strong, Bucks strong, Celtics, like you said, they've been on a roll. I don't see them falling off. You would assume the Nets leapfrog the Raptors and get it going with all their big stars coming back. The only team I can see falling out and replaced by the Raptors is actually the Cavaliers. And here's why. They're going through some injuries of Levert and Garland. Now, it's nothing serious or major, but is this a Cavs team that will fall back a little bit after, let's call it for what it is, they've overachieved everybody's expectations? And you look at the standings right now, which I am, the Raptors are just 2 games back of the Cavaliers, who lost last night against the Pistons. That was a bad loss for them. Again, they were missing some of their best players, but they should have won that game. So the Cavs, to me, could be that team that slows down a bit just because they haven't been in this position in a very long time. They're looking to make the playoffs for the first time since LeBron left, of course. So to get my
I can see that.
prediction, I think that's the possibility the Raptors can get into the top six. Do I ultimately see it happening? I'll be on the side that says it doesn't. So yeah, I'll say the Raptors finish seventh or eighth, and I'll lean towards eighth because I do think the Nets at some point are going to turn this thing around, but I could be wrong. But yeah, I'll go seventh or eighth for the Raptors, where they finish when it's all said and done. I don't see the Hornets or the Hawks leapfrogging them, especially if the Raptors can pick up wins against them this weekend. That'll be huge to kind of solidify where they're at right now.
Yeah, the Eastern Conference is really fun right now. I think the NBA as a whole is really fun because there's no longer that one juggernaut or that one superstar. I mean, I'll knock on wood, and I guess we'll wait until we see the way that James Harden and Joel Embiid links up, as well as KD, Ben Simmons, and Kyrie Irving, because that could obviously shift the dynamic there a heck of a lot in the Eastern Conference. But what I've really enjoyed about this season is just how much parity there is between that one and I'll even go down to seventh, eighth spot. There's been a lot of movement there, especially at the top of the standings, and I don't I honestly don't know who's going to finish first in the Eastern Conference come the end of the year. It's still up for grabs, and it's going to be an interesting second half of the year, and particularly for the Raptors, who are very much in this mix, which is something I don't think we were really expecting to say come a few months ago.
Yeah, we'll see how the Raptors look tonight. And speaking of James Harden, he will be making his Sixers debut tonight, and that's a really good point. We have yet to see the Sixers with their new team and also the Nets, so that could change a lot. But for right now, there has been a whole lot of parity in the NBA. Okay, let's move on the rundown here and let's talk about Toronto FC. They're back, baby. They're going to be taking on FC Dallas tomorrow afternoon in their, or is it in the evening?
It's 5:30.
5:30. Okay, yeah, I guess you could classify that as late afternoon or evening. They're going to be taking on FC Dallas. This is going to be TFC's season opener. This is going to be FC Dallas home opener. And TFC are plus 260 underdogs on the road against Dallas. The draw is plus 245. And just a fun fact, the last time the series came all the way back in 2013, the over-under for goals is set at 2.5. And you look at this head-to-head, TFC are 0-3 in their last three against FC Dallas. And they haven't won in Dallas in almost 11 years. It's been quite the drought for TFC here. As you look at FC Dallas, they've been working hard to rebuild, trying to do much better than they did a year ago. As for TFC, they finished 13th in the East, only 6 wins, a negative 27 goals difference last year, and their 66 goals allowed were the second worst in the league. Let's just say it was a very forgettable last year for TFC. But the page has been turned. It's a fresh new start. Can TFC open up their campaign with a win? What do you expect from TFC in their season opener here?
It's what everyone kind of is wondering right now is what exactly this team is going to look like with so many changes happening during the off season. Luca, 18 bodies out of 30 left the club. 18 players out of 30 left the club. And some important pieces, if you think of someone like a Josie Altidore, a Jefferson Celteldo, guys like that were designated players for this team have now moved on from the club, and in their place they brought in someone like a Carlos Salcedo. You mentioned that Toronto FC, they let in 66 goals allowed, second worst in the league, the worst in franchise history. But they brought in someone like a Carlos Salcedo, a designated player as a center back, which is not very common in Major League Soccer, to help shore up this defense. So that's the first thing I'm looking for in this matchup here, is how exactly TFC does look defensively under new manager, by the way, Bob Bradley. And Bob Bradley is, of course, the father of Michael Bradley, and he's a guy who's won everything that you can in Major League Soccer. He's a guy who was desperately needed to come in and earn the respect of the dressing room, which by all accounts that he has. He's demanding someone like an Alejandro Pozuelo, who is known to be a playmaker for Toronto FC, a creator. He's challenging him more to contribute more defensively, which is something that he talked about actually yesterday. And Paz, by all accounts, has bought into that challenge. And, you know, when you have someone like a Pozuelo who kind of sets the tempo for this team, he's playing some defense, then it rubs off on the rest of your team. So that's the first thing I'm looking for. The second, of course, is getting off to the right foot here. Yeah. I think that's really important for this team after what happened last year. And on the wing backs, they have two very young players. One of them is Jaquil Marshall-Rudy, who is the most highly touted Canadian prospect out there right now. TFC have him valued at $20 million, which is about the same amount as Alphonso Davies got when he moved over to Bayern Munich. And this kid is 17 years old and is going to be a starter for Toronto FC this season. So keep an eye out for kind of how they do on the wingbacks. The other one is Jacob Schaffelberg. These guys are also former wingers that were converted into defenders. So something to keep an eye on to see how they do down the flanks. But overall, it's exciting, I guess, whenever you start the year with such a fresh group. And I really don't know what to expect. What I'll say is Dallas wasn't much better than Toronto FC last year.
Yeah.
They spent a lot of money. They tried to kind of revamp this team, even though they lost a key piece or two. And I don't know what Dallas is going to look like either, to be completely honest with you. So we don't really get too much of a glimpse into MLS sides before the start of the year. They do a lot of closed door training sessions and scrimmages and whatnot. So I think for everybody right now, it's going to be a bit of a learning curve betting on MLS. And what I'll say though, Luke, is historically, trying to win on the road in Major League Soccer is never an easy feat. So keep that in mind. But the draw, as you mentioned, is plus 250. TFC open up as plus 260 underdogs. I think Dallas, I saw it like minus 110 or something like that.
Yeah.
So I think there's more value actually in betting TFC here, just because it's not like you're facing a Seattle or a New York City FC on the road. You're facing FC Dallas, which is a very winnable game. So keep an eye. You could find some value there.
Yeah, I think this line is reflective of you don't know what TFC team you're going to get. Are they going to stumble out of the gate? But also just TFC's history of struggling in Dallas and just being on the road. So I was quite surprised to see that line to open up this game, and I would take TFC in this spot. I don't think you would. I think it's an opportunity where you could win because you just don't know what you're gonna see. It's one of those fun things to begin the year where it's the club could look awful or the club could look amazing, and at those odds, I really like TFC just to win that game. And the draw is also tempting. It hasn't happened in a while, so it's due. So that's also something that I like as well. But I think ultimately, my pick for this game would be either a draw or TFC. I think there's a lot of value there. And because there's so much unknown and TFC's bringing so many new bodies to the table, I'm going to give this team the benefit of the doubt and be optimistic about their current situation.
And I think that's probably the right mentality there. And I don't know if Dallas is really going to know what to expect from TFC too much as well, which is something probably worth mentioning as well. So, yeah, I like TFC in this spot. I'm with you there, Luca. And one thing I want to add is you mentioned their TFC's history against FC Dallas. I mean, these are a side that hasn't played each other in about two seasons, 3 seasons. So it's not like it's too much familiarity there as well. So we'll see how this plays out, but I'm excited that Major League Soccer is finally back. It's been a long 3 months, and we'll be talking about TFC a lot more on this show.
Yeah, no, most definitely. It's going to be exciting to bring back MLS and talk more TFC on the show. Let's quickly touch on Forge before we get into our best bets. I know you wanted to talk about this. They lost yesterday in the CONCACAF Champions League 3-1. What was your main takeaway from this game? I mean, it was an incredible environment in that stadium. But what were your just quick thoughts of this game that took place yesterday?
Sorry, which game were you referring to there?
Forge.
Oh, the Forge game. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
that was
Forge.
I mean, Forge got blown out, but I
Yeah.
think it was just incredible that Forge were in that spot to begin with at the Estadio Azteca.
Yeah, it
Um,
was great
uh,
to watch that.
yeah, it was really cool to see the players adjust in that environment. I think they're only going to take that experience with them. They managed to score a goal at the Azteca, which is insane. And just to see a Canadian Premier League side that didn't even exist 4 years ago, one of our very own, go out there and battle at one of the most famed stadiums, not only in North America but also just world football, was incredible to see. And it's another step forward for the game in this country, which has been just on an absolute wave the last couple of years. So another chapter in the book, and it wasn't the result that they wanted, but it's still a very good experience.
Yeah, no, again, it was cool to see Forge in that environment. I don't think many people were expecting a win, but hey, they were able to muster up at least one goal. So we'll probably have some more Canadian Premier League talk on the show moving forward. But as for now, we will get into our best bets of the night, and I'm struggling right now, man. I'm on a 3-game skid, so it has not been pretty. You won your bet last night, so you're at least on a win streak. What do you got for us tonight? The people want to know a winner. So Mikey Singh, how the tables have turned, now has the momentum on his side.
Yeah, a solid 1 game winning streak, but I'm gonna stick with the pitch, man. It's been working for me. And of course, I just talked about them. It's Toronto FC, and as Luke and I both alluded to, a draw or a bet might be the result in this game. So I'm actually gonna take a Gerard no bet for Toronto FC at plus 163. So what that essentially means for those that aren't familiar is it takes away the 3-way money line. It just becomes a 2-way money line. So it's either a win for TFC or a win for Dallas. If it's a draw, then it means it's no bet. So verbatim, exactly what it means there, and I'm taking TFC at plus 163.
I like it. Like I said, I would take TFC on the money line, just playing that risky card to begin the season. For my pick, hopefully the NBA can snap this losing streak of mine, but I'm actually looking at a very interesting game in the Western Conference. If the playoffs started today, we would see this matchup in the first round. I'm talking Jazz Mavericks. The Mavericks right now are +6 underdogs, and I'm taking the points. I think this is a team that they're hitting their season stride right now. Luca Doncic is emerging as a late candidate, if you will, for MVPs, coming off a 49-point outing the last time he played against the Pelicans last week. This is a Mavs team that's coming in on a 2-game winning streak. They're 7-3 in their last 10. Overall, they've been a decent road team. And I just think the Mavericks would want a matchup with the Jazz in the first round if things were to play out the way that they do now. The Mavericks obviously want to get into that top four, so they have home court throughout. But I like what this team is starting to look like. A lot of people were very skeptical, myself included, when the Porzingis move went down. But it's looking like it's going to be better for Dallas in the long term. Their defense has been one of the best defenses in the new year. Their offense looks so much smooth with Luca doing his thing, surrounded by a bunch of guys who can hit shots. I think Dallas is going to make this game interesting tonight. It's always tough to go into Utah and win a game, but I like that I'm getting 6 points here.
Is Rudy Gobert back for the Utah Jazz? Do you know that?
I believe uh I believe he will be going tonight. Let's see quick update here. But
Yeah,
even if he's playing tonight, I'm still taking the Mavericks. I think they're just on a really good roll, and yeah, I can see them making this game interesting and possibly even winning it. So
the reason I was asking is because I'm if Rudy Gobert is going and Porzingis is gone from Dallas, who do you really have inside to match up against Rudy Gobert all game? That's my only concern with that one. And
yeah,
especially with the Jazz playing at home, Mike Conley's been balling out. Obviously, Donovan Mitchell's back. Bogdanovich has been doing it all season. That's my one reservation.
yeah,
But
Rudy Gobert is playing tonight.
yeah, so
They have Jared Butler and Rudy Gay as doubtful.
okay, yeah, so we'll see kind of how that plays out overall, and I guess there's no reason to doubt you when it comes to NBA, man, because that's been your mo. So maybe you see something that the line in Vegas don't.
Yeah, the thing with the Mavericks, I think that's going to be their that's going to be their biggest issue. And like when people look at this Mavericks team, and they look at their inability to guard bigger players when you do trade away a Porzingis, that's going to be their in many people's eyes, their main issue. But here's the thing: they've actually looked like a better team without Porzingis, and even when Porzingis was in and out of the lineup, that's when their defense kind of turned it up a notch. So I mean, it is going to be a struggle with Gobert there. I think Dwight Powell can only do so much, and there's not a whole lot of size. But I just like this team defense the Mavs are playing right now. The help defense, just guys are committing to their roles, and their offense just looks so good that whenever you could get 6 points, I really think they can keep this game close. We'll see what happens. I can look like a complete idiot with this bet, but hey, I'm trusting Luca Doncic, who's on a heater right now, man. This dude is putting up MVP numbers, and I would not be surprised if he has another 40-plus game tonight.
Like you said, Luca has definitely turned the corner, and that team usually lives or dies by Luca Doncic. So if he goes off tonight, then the Mavericks definitely have a good chance of at least covering that spread, if not winning.
We'll see what happens, but that's going to conclude another edition of Toronto Today, our Friday edition. We hope you all enjoyed it. Let us know who you like with your best bet picks for this weekend. You can also follow and download this podcast wherever you get your favorite podcasts. And make sure you follow us across all social media platforms so you keep it locked and loaded with this show. Monday through Friday, Mike and I come at you with Toronto sports and more. Thank you so much for watching and listening, and have yourselves a great weekend.